morning, we continue with emotional intelligence. Last week, we delved into emotional intelligence. We talked about some of the things that we do in order to diffuse the situation, say, if there's some anger on the part of somebody, using essential oils to kind of change the environment that we're in. But today we're going to go deeper. We're going to go into what do we do for ourselves? Because there's two parts to emotional intelligence. There's the external, or what's called performance, where it's usually based on a job performance. It's based on outward things. We see a situation, we adapt to that situation. If somebody's angry, we adapt. We don't get angry with them. We use our emotional intelligence to diffuse that situation or to balance it. So today we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to go inside of us. And emotional intelligence is a big key to any kind of transformation and lasting change because it has to do with who we are, who we know who we are, and how we present who we are to the outside world. So before I introduce my two experts today, I will give you a brief introduction of who I am. Many of you know me because I've been guest hosting this for a while, about 4 or 5 months. I'm Teresa Palmer, and I am a holistic cardiology nurse practitioner. And a lot of work that I do with my patients and with uh, private clients has to do with transformation and emotional intelligence. I like to say I'm the nurse that helps people reconnect to their heart. And in reconnecting to their heart, they reconnect to their self awareness, to their emotional intelligence, and to lasting transformation. Because transformation without the heart engagement is only superficial and isn't lasting. I'm also author of the book Heal Your Heart from Within and an upcoming book that is all about heart led transformation. With that said, I'll go to my first panelist here, who's a regular, Dr. Derain.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Dr. Irvin. I am a pastor. I'm the CEO of 3-in-1 Ministries and Genesis Innovations. I am an author of I Am Royalty. You are who God says you are. And I am an Amazon bestseller with several books. And to God be the glory for more books coming out in the next few weeks. So I'm excited about that. Nathaniel.
I'm Nathaniel Ross. I am a certified global empowerment life coach. I head up a nonprofit for personal growth and development, Abundance Legacy, Inc. And I'm surrounded by smart people. So that's how I get through life.
Oh, are these people emotionally intelligent or are these people logically brain intelligent or both?
Both. Most of them anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's always that combination. So why don't we start the conversation? Uh, since we started with, let's start with you, Nathaniel, on what is your take about emotional intelligence, about the self-awareness, about really what self-aware, what emotional intelligence is as presence and not just performance.
I'm sorry I missed the last conversation that we had, and I did not get to hear the replay of it, but would have loved to have been there. But it seems as though today's focus is on self. It's self-awareness and self-regulation.
Yes.
And that's two of the five areas in emotional intelligence. Is to be able to be aware of self and then how to regulate your behavior in those emotional situations. I was watching the news And unfortunately, it was just an unfortunate situation, but also it was a police officer, off-duty police officer. He's driving, he stops at the light, somebody blows their horn to tell him to move on, and he jumps out of the car and he goes over to the individual and he punches the individual in the face after exchanging words. And I thought, wow, that's it right there, right? Self-awareness. Dude, the police officer was not aware of his own behavior, what he was doing, or what the consequences of would be for what he was doing. And he definitely did not regulate his behavior. So does, someone blowing a horn at you equate to you getting out and physically assaulting them? But those are the type of things that that's just an example, but those are the kind of things that we stop. And if you look at and go, why are people behaving the way that they behave, right? And it's usually because people stop developing, or their personalities develop at up to the 7th grade level. And then they don't do any personal growth and development. So that behavior is that childlike behavior, or those impulses are still the same as that 7th grader, but you're looking at it in an adult body, and it's like you're looking at it and going, this doesn't make sense. But it does make a lot of sense, because most people are trapped at that 7th grade personality because they don't do work to develop themselves to become emotionally mature in terms of their behavior awareness, and then the regulation of that behavior. So if you take back and look through those lenses, as you start to look at the behavior you see around you every day, it starts to go, aha, it makes sense. Person stopped at that personal level of the 7th grade, and they haven't worked to do anything better. So now I can see what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's actually survival mode. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of people are stuck in survival mode because, like you said, they don't do the work. They don't do that inner work to really regulate themselves and to process and handle their emotions and express emotions. You could be angry and you could certainly express that, but you don't express it by punching somebody. That's a survival response, what used to be called the primitive response, that right away your brain, and that's why it's important to always not just have your brain going, but have your heart going with your brain and get them on the same page to
Yeah.
regulate your systems, because without it, your body thinks you're in danger. So when that horn was blown, it set off a cascade of fight or flight emotions, of
Mhm.
survival. So it's not that unusual that this cop, who's also used to being in circumstances where he has to survive, jumps out of a car. And the first instinct is to punch, get rid of that opponent, to get that opponent in a place where they can't harm him. So it's really not that unusual. Sadly, it's not that
Mhm.
unusual. But, it's only, like you said, when we work with ourselves and we get to know who we are, how could we control ourselves? What's good about our emotions and what could use some work? And with that, I'll go to Dr. Durain.
I am in shock that a member of the police department would behave in that manner. It's sad because this is someone who we expect to protect us and to show us the better way. It's also ironic that you would compare that mindset to middle school, because that's where I spent many years. And in speaking to middle school children, that really was their mentality. They would react in such an aggressive manner, and sometimes so inappropriate, just like this gentleman. I mean, definitely if you are self-regulating your emotions, there was a much better and more appropriate way to handle that. And that's what we teach children in middle school, because it's that transition age where they're trying to discover themselves. They're trying to figure out, who am I? I always tell them, One day you want to be a child, the next day you want to cuss folks out and act like you're grown. You need to figure out a balance and figure out who you are. And we as adults have got to set better examples. I remember one student, and I'm not trying to make this political statement, but asked, how can you tell me about being a bully and calling names when I see our president doing it on television every day? There was nothing I could say to that except I'm trying to teach you a better way. There is a better way, and that's not the way to handle things. In terms of personal self-regulation, there was a time when I don't know if I would call myself a hothead, but I would tell people, I give as good as I get. I could read you, write you, and do spell check. And that was the way that I handled things. But that was based on the environment that I was living in. I was living in South Philadelphia. It was a very racist and hostile environment. And you had to have that mentality so people wouldn't think that they could do things to you. It was like, for me, my stop sign. If you go there, I'll go there with you. That's not my mentality anymore, because I realized that was, like you said, that was my survival mode. It wasn't fight or flight. It was fight. Flight was not even an option. But now that I am a mature woman of God, and praise God, this started a long, long time ago. I didn't just arrive here yesterday. It was many, many years ago. But I govern myself and my emotion by the word of God, the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22-23. And I have told parents and students in the midst of being cussed out and called everything but a child of God, I will show you respect, even though you're not showing me respect. And when I've called parents and said that, they were like, wait, so you're telling me my child was cussing you out, but you were being respectful to them? And I said, ask them. And they said yes, because what I do is everybody, whether you're in kindergarten, high school, college, I call you ma'am and sir. A lot of people have a problem with that. They're like, you trying to make me sound, oh, no, I'm showing you respect. So when I call a kindergartner ma'am, the response is they're going to respond to me in the same manner. So that was my mindset. If I treat you with respect, then you'll know to treat me with respect. And when the child says, no, she didn't raise her voice. And then the parents would really explode. Are you telling me she was respectful to you and you still continue to disrespect her? And I've had to tell parents that. I've had to tell an assistant superintendent that, who kept trying to push my buttons based on what other people had told her, false information. And I merely said to both of them, because there were two of them, I said, I will never act unladylike or ungodly. And it doesn't matter what you say or do, because I answer to a higher power. So that's how I try to self-regulate. And that's how I try to treat other people. Because even though, and I'm going to use this term, you might be stuck on stupid, it doesn't mean I have to go in that temple with you. My job is to try to get you out and help you act in a different manner. And sometimes it takes a short period of time. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but 99% of the time, I can get that person out of what I call that temple of stuck on stupid, so that we can have an intelligent and a logical conversation where something positive will come out of it. Even if we get it at that time, because a lot of times I've had people have to call me back, you were respectful to me and I was terrible and I want to apologize. And it helped us develop a wonderful relationship from there. So
I think you touched.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think you touched on something important. It's about children. The fact that our brains have a tendency to get stuck in survival is important, that children learn other ways of dealing with things. And I think, unfortunately, the environments, whether it be a street, dangerous environment, whether it be anything, is we're pretty conditioned to be outside of ourselves. we're not conditioned to be inside of ourselves, which means that emotional intelligence takes a back seat to this intelligence up here.
Mhm.
And this intelligence up here is reactive. So, if we see somebody doing something to somebody else, or we're in a situation where we have to survive, that's what we learn. And that's what we carry through into adulthood. And it doesn't always have to be dangerous situations. It could be that society just wants us to be outside of ourselves. They want us to be in our head and they want us to emulate what others, and by that I mean authority figures, any type of authority figure does. That's starting to break down now, but there's still that tendency for us to doubt ourselves and for us to stand up for ourselves. So if we're using emotional intelligence, we may know that what we're doing is not right, but at the same time, it could be also that we just want to fit in. If we see everybody around us acting a certain way, we want to fit in. We want to be with the crowd. So we sacrifice our own self awareness and our own emotional intelligence to go along with the crowd. So, Nathaniel, do you have some thoughts about that or thoughts about something different?
Well, I think that the big missing piece is empathy, which is part of emotional intelligence. People don't have empathy for where others are in their lives and what's going on with them. So a lot of what this behavior that we see is all about the self-centeredness that you had just spoke about, as opposed to understanding where is the other person coming from, and do you need to, like Dr. Derain says, do you need to go down to that level and play in the mud with them, or do you stay above it and try to help elevate them out of it? But again, if you haven't been trained, if you haven't taken the time to learn the skill sets, you're going to go to a default of it's all about me, and you're going to respond emotionally, and usually with an impulse that's not good for anybody that's involved. Um, Other than that, I think I would take it down a rabbit hole because Dr. Ray, I'm shocked the police. You know what? It's not just the police. It's clergy, it's the police, it's politicians, it's entertainers. Everybody's looking to these people for something because they're well known and supposed to be in well respected positions, but have not necessarily earned to be respected in those positions or have been taught to behave the way that they should in those positions. And then when some ugly behavior show up, we're like, oh, I'm appalled. Why? Why? What are we appalled for? We know that people are people, and just because you give them a badge and a gun, or just because you give them a title, or because you put them on TV, doesn't stop them from being ignorant. But as a society, we have sugarcoated everything. Uh, even with storytelling for little kids, this is how life is supposed to be, and kids buy into that lie, that social lie. And then when things don't happen, their emotions go flaring because they haven't been taught, and they haven't been taught that what's being showed to them is an illusion and not reality. So what happens? The impulse comes out of the emotional impulse comes out of them, and they say and do things that really upset themselves as well as other people. So it's one of those things that we're doing to ourselves, and we need to just stop it.
Yeah, that illusion. And I think that illusion's not getting better, it's getting worse
Yes.
because now you could have any kind of illusion that you want. You could make whatever you want. You look on social media, you look at even the news, and things are created. I mean, we don't always know what's real. We don't know if half of it is real, maybe three quarters of it is real, maybe none of it is real. But now anybody could be a legend in their own mind. we've made it very easy with artificial intelligence to create these falsehoods. And if you already have an ego that's unstable and you're already someone that reacts to situations because you're not emotionally aware and you're really confused of who you are, this could really set you over the edge. And it could really have some dire consequences, whether you're just creating that false image that you want people to personify you as, or you're a celebrity. And I don't remember who the celebrity was, but it was an Academy Award where I think somebody got into a fight, something big happened all over an award, which totally ruined somebody's career. And, again, it was this illusion of this is who I think I am and this is who I'm supposed to be. But as soon as somebody doesn't treat you like you want to be treated in your own grandeur and your own legend in your own mind, it causes a big problem. So we have about 8 more minutes. So, Dr. Derain, what would you like to add or go on to something different?
Well, I want to respond to Nathaniel. I am always appalled and shocked when people, adults, act out of character because I expect people to come up to my standard. I'm not coming down to yours. I expect you to come up to mine. And when they don't meet it, my heart kind of breaks a little bit. So that's where the appalled comes from, because I want to believe that most people are inherently good. But like you said, it's that level of empathy. We have got to stop living in a world where it's all about me. It is not all about you. It's all about everyone. And we have to take others' feelings into our actions and also our reactions. Sometimes it's not our actions that get us in trouble. It's our reactions, because we forget about any kind of intelligence, whether emotional or intellectual, and we go to another level. I think, and this is my prayer for America, which I pray every day. I pray for the hearts and the minds of all of our leaders, whether they're in politics, in the sports industry, whether they're actors, whether they're in the pulpit, because our children are looking up to them. And I just want to believe that we will get to the point where we are better role models for our children. And we are acting with some kind of intelligence, whether it's emotional or intellectual, for the future of our children, that we put our own feelings aside, look more at the feelings of the others. One thing, and I'll wrap this up very briefly, I've told teachers, when a student comes into the classroom, the first thing is, good morning, how are you? How was your morning? Not where's your homework? Because I had to tell a couple of teachers, do you know they slept in their car last night because they were evicted? You talking about his homework, they don't even have a place to stay. Or mom is in the hospital because dad beat her up. That kid is not thinking about doing homework. That kid is in survival mode. So if we took more time to look at individuals, like the police officer, maybe there was something going on with that person behind him. And if he had taken that into consideration, he would have responded in a better way, that one would have helped him keep his job and would have kept him out of jail. If we just stop for a moment and consider what is going on with the other person, we'd have a wonderful world. And it would be a deeper world, full of happiness and love, joy and kindness toward all people. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, Nathaniel, since we're coming close to the close of this, any final words or anything else that you would like to say about this?
I guess my final words would be to find somebody that, whether it's a life coach or someone that's in leadership role that has the skill sets, and start improving yourselves, because it's something that we all need. I'm globally certified and trained, but that doesn't mean anything. I still have to go to a life coach and a mentor to make sure that I continue to keep myself balanced and that I'm doing the things that I need to do to keep improving. So if you're walking around full of ego thinking you got your stuff together, I can tell you you're very wrong, and that you might want to reach out to someone who has the skill sets that's going to help you to continue to fine tune them.
I
And
agree with
if I
that.
can add to that, and we have a very good one. His name is Nathaniel Ross, and you can reach him through Abundance Legacy. Look him up online. That is an infomercial, people.
Thank you, Dr. Ray.
Yeah. I think it's just my final words would be it's so important to do that inner work and to have a mentor, to have a guide, because there's things that you could do on your own, but to get past that, what I call a bridge, you have to go with someone who could really look at your behavior, look at you, and make recommendations, give you reflection on what you're doing, what's going on. And I think it's just so invaluable to have mentors, to have coaches, to have healthcare professionals, mental health professionals, teachers, anybody that we could get that could help us. So I think that we all have to get a little bit, it's important to be inside of ourselves because that's where our self-awareness, that's where our empathy, that's where our emotional intelligence lies and gets activated. But we also have to look to other people, not just as looking outside ourselves as authority figures or this is the way society wants us to do it and just emulate behavior, but go to other people to improve ourselves. What am I doing that's really good? But what am I doing that could use improvement? What could be reflected back to me through someone else's eyes that perhaps I need to improve because none of us are perfect. Any final words from anyone before we wrap this up?
Be who you
Okay.
are. Be the best that you can be, but take into account other people's. Show empathy, show love, show compassion in every situation that you face. And I promise you, you'll be a better person for it.
Well, thank you for that. And with that, it's a wrap. Thank you for joining us, for those listening, for those watching and listening, and those who will do this with the replay. We hope that we gave you some inspiration, that we gave you some food for thought. It's not that you have to resonate with everything that's being said, but perhaps there's some nuggets that you're taking away with this. Maybe waking up a little bit to saying, am I really being the best person that I could be? Or maybe I need to reach out to some people and find out maybe there's ways that I could improve, that I could be more self aware, have more empathy, and really let my emotional intelligence shine. Thank you, everyone.